Hi, everyone. Your godmother's here. Thank you for joining me today while I talk about my top 10 favorite horror films from South Korea. Now, if you want to know about horror TV shows from South Korea, you can also ask me about that because my husband and I pretty much only watch television shows from South Korea. Before I get into this, I'm sorry. There's no Ganjam Haunted Asylum. I'm sorry. I'm sorry there's no host. I'm sorry. I know those are two huge faves. And I did enjoy them, but truth be told, we have an embarrassment of riches from South Korea in terms of horror, and I had to pick my top 10. Let me know what yours are in the comments below. Yes, we are still playing the passport game, so there will be a keyword popping up in here for you to collect. Now, before I jump into the 10 again, I keep saying before I jump in, I have two honorable mentions. And the first is The Medium, which is kind of a cheat because it's a joint production between Thailand and South Korea, but it really deserves a mention. Fantastic film. I highly recommend it. Also, I should add Three Extremes, which I loved, and I reviewed it in my top 10 anthology videos, but I didn't include it here as only one of the three stories is from South Korea, but it's an amazing collection. So now let's jump in to number 10, which is The Red Shoes from 2005. And please forgive me for my pronunciation of names in this recording. I'm doing my best. It's directed by Kim Yong-gun and starring Kim Yi-soo and Kim Sung-soo. This movie's a vibe. And if you watch it, you'll understand why I chose that term. The titular shoes are actually pink and not red, but that's a minor infraction. The shoes are cursed, but they're so beautiful that everybody wants them. They're bewitching. So you might wonder, why all the trouble? Like, why are people willing to kill and die for these shoes? You need to see these shoes. You need to see the shoes. I felt the same way. And if you have a foot fetish or a shoe fetish, hey, you know what? No judgment. The Godmother never judges. But this is your movie. On to number 9, which is #Alive from 2020, directed by Cho Il-young and starring Yoo Ah-in and Park Shin-ye. This one took a while to snare me. My algorithm kept saying to watch it, but I just was turned off by the title. It felt to me from the trailer to be like The Night Eats World mixed with All of Us Are Dead. Both I loved. I loved both of those. But again, the title. But I really shouldn't have fought it. You know, that perfect science of algorithms. No one knows me like my streaming service. So I did finally break down and watch it, and I enjoyed it. You know, I love a zombie apocalypse. I mean, every country I've done so far and will continue to do will have at least one zombie film included in it. You know, zombie apocalypses are my thing. I'm completely prepared for one. Bring them on. You know how they say the man or the bear? I would pick the bear and I would pick the zombie. And what's my favorite zombie movie? Mads. I reviewed it in French horror, along with The Night Eats World. But basically, this is The Night Eats World mixed with All of Us Are Dead, but it's fun to watch. At first we have a lone survivor, but then he comes to find a co-survivor, and I'm not really giving anything away by saying that because that is part of the trailer. And watching them try to navigate their apartment complex and stay #alive. It was very engaging. This film also had what I consider a hopeful ending, which is kind of unusual for the genre. Wait till we get closer to the end of this list. On to number 8. Number 8 is Monstrum from 2018, which also made my top 10 creature feature list. This film's a good time. It's directed by Hyo Jong-ho and stars Kim Young-min and Kim In-kwon. This movie's a period piece. It's beautiful to look at. It's beautifully filmed. The costumes are so elaborate. The scenery is beautiful. It's just a beautiful film. There's political intrigue in this film because the countryside, excuse me, is being faced with a plague, which is kind of interesting because this was released in 2018. It's like a premonition. And there's also a monster that's rumored to be rampaging the countryside. But in the very beginning of the film, at least, you're not quite sure if there really is a monster or if that is, they're staging it as a way of dethroning the current ruler and put someone else in his place. But then, we realize it is actual a real monster. This movie has everything you would ever want. There's a monster, there's a plague, there's humor, there's swashbuckling and sword fights and action. This is almost like action meets horror meets creature feature. The creature design is so cool in this. The monster moves in this really frenetic way, and it looks like a cross between a totem and a gorilla and a dragon. Like all good monster movies, I was so excited when Monstrum showed up. You know how you're watching, for example, Godzilla, and then when he shows up, you're like, oh, thank God he's here. That's how I felt with Monstrum. There's some characters that I was really tired of, and I thought, God, I hope Monstrum beats them quickly. I'm not going to give you the backstory or the origin story for the monster because I really want you to discover this for yourself. It's unique and it's really amusing. This entire film's fun, and I recommend it. It is definitely a Friday night popcorn movie. Number 7 is Urban Myths from 2022, directed by Hong Wong-Ki and starring a boatload of actors. People, there's 10 different stories here, and there's different actors in every single one of the stories. 10 might have been a bit much. 10 might have been a bit much, but I do love an anthology. There's a lot of body horror here. There's scary, hungry ghosts and curses. Urban Myths has a Tales from the Crypt or a body bag type feel if you like those kind of films. It's another popcorn movie. It's not that deep. One of the segments is called Tooth Worms. Let that sink in. And I watched that one like this. Ugh, between my fingers. The story Necromancy has some really good schoolgirl costumes. And your godmother loves those schoolgirl costumes, or uniforms, I should say. The one called The Closet is a creepy supernatural / home invasion. I love home invasion. And the very last story was my absolute favorite. It was called Escape Games, and it was about some influencers dealing with a satanic escape room. Number 6 is A Tale of Two Sisters from 2003, directed by Kim Ji-woon and starring Im Soo-young and Moon Gyun-young. This film is based on a folktale, and it's completely unsettling. We have two sisters, a tale of two sisters, right, who live with their father and their evil stepmother. And at some point, you and the godmother can have a discussion about why fairy tales and fairy tale type stories are prolific with evil stepmothers, but that could be a conversation for another time. One of the sisters was just recently released from a psychiatric ward. We find out that this stepmother was the in-home nurse for their biological mother who was terminally ill. The older, more protective sister comes to believe that the stepmom is now abusing her younger sister and that it's her job to protect her. And I don't want to give anything else away. I don't want to give any spoilers. You really need to watch this. It's gothic. It's a gothic film. It's beautifully gothic. It's a ghost story with twists and turns. There's amazing acting. And most importantly, nothing in this film is what it seems. So you have to watch it very carefully. Number 5 is The Call from 2020, directed by Lee Chung-win and starring Park Shin-yi, who's also in #Alive, and John Jong-so, and it's a horror thriller about a young woman who goes to visit her sick, estranged mother in the old dilapidated home in which she grew up, her childhood home. In this home, there's this old phone that receives spooky calls from someone saying they're being tortured by their mother. What is happening is that the woman making the calls lived in that home, but some 20 years earlier, and now they're able to speak to each other across time. So you know the rules with time travel, and I know this really isn't official time travel, but it's the ability to reach the past and provide warnings. You can imagine it gets pretty messed up. There's some scary alternative timelines that appear. I'm not going to give anything else away. Let's just say this one is really tense and the acting is killer. Number 4 is Exuma from 2024, directed by Jang Jae-yeon, starring Choi Min-sik and Kim Go-yeon and Lee Do-hwan, who I love. He was great in Sweet Home. Sweet Home season 1 is good, and then it kind of really lost its luster after that. But he was also great in The Glory, which was interesting and disturbing. But let's get back to Exuma. Just like in The Medium, which I gave an honorable mention, we have a shaman as a main character. And she, along with her protege, are hired by a wealthy Korean American family who they have a newborn baby, and there's some, illness affecting the family's newborn that they believe will lead to death if there's no intervention. So the shaman uncovers that there's a curse called a grave's call, which is when a vengeful ancestor spirit haunts you. So they decide to relocate the grave to appease the ancestor, who's the grandfather. That's the one who they figure out is haunting them. So the shaman enlists her colleagues, a feng shui master, he's a geomancer, and a mortician. And she tells them that, between these 4, she, her protege, the geomancer, and the mortician, they're going to split this big payday from this job. Now, these 4 characters have a lot of charisma. I would happily watch another movie just featuring them and their friendship and their exploits. A lot happens in this film. I can't even get into it. But as I watched, I knew I was missing some things. It's obvious that part of the plot is tied into the Japanese occupation of Korea. And I'm not really familiar with that history. So after I finished, I did some research, and yes, as always, I walked the streets of Reddit as I do, and I learned the backstory. And then I also, so I became more educated on South Korean history. And then I also applied what I already knew from Taoism. And this made me enjoy the film even more. That's to say, you can just take this film on face value and just watch it. And I think you will really enjoy it. It's a very popular film. I doubt that all these people are, doing all this research, and they seem to really enjoy it even without the research. But your godmother's always going to go that extra and basically unnecessary step of doing a deep dive into the influences of a film. So you can either be with me and do that, or just do it, just watch it for what it is, and you'll still enjoy it regardless. Number 3 is Thirst from 2009, directed by Park Chan-wook and starring Song Kang-ho, who we know from Host and Parasite. And Parasite is another great film. To me, it's not really a horror film, but God, I loved it. And also this stars Kim Ok-bin. And oddly, it's based on the 1867 novel by Emile Zola. So that's kind of a weird connection, but whatever. This movie, I love this movie. We have a Catholic priest who God bless, he wants to serve. He wants to give this community, like he's all in. He's a shepherd. God love him. So he, volunteers for this blood virus experiment as a way of giving back to his community. And he becomes infected with, you know it, something that's a disease, but not really a disease. So everyone thinks, hey, he's dying. He's got this terminal disease, but he really is a bloodsucker instead. So he has this miraculous recovery. And then because he miraculously recovers, he starts to have this group of followers who think he's a saint or something. So it's funny. There's all these devout Catholics following him around. And this is all well and good until our priest reunites with a childhood friend who introduces him to his batshit crazy wife. And when I say batshit crazy, she's a lot. And so, of course, the priest and the wife begin to have an affair. And then, there's always some confusion about whether, the woman's husband's abusive, or is she saying he's abusive? Is she implying that he's abusive? Is she manipulating the priest? But anyway, there's some murder. And then it gets nuttier and nuttier from there. It's a titillating film. Thirst is funny. It's exciting. It's engaging. It's gruesome. And it's full of vampiric passion. Number 2 is Train to Busan. Yes, your godmother's a sentimental old hag. Train to Busan is from 2016, directed by Yong Sang-ho and starring Gong Yoo. You Squid Game fans might recognize him, and Jung Yoo Mi. And I've said it before, and I will say it again. If this movie did not break your heart, then you don't have a heart. I watched this several times. And I watched it, and then later I said to my husband, hey, you might want to watch this film. And I warned him. I said, look, I know you think this is all, it's a zombie film. It's going to be about bashing brains and all that. But that's not what this is. This is going to be an emotional ride. It's going to pull you in. And I don't think he heard me, because he doesn't ever really listen to me. Because at the end of the film, he looks at me and he says, why didn't you warn me? Anyway, so I'm warning you. Okay? I'm warning you. What we have in this film is we have passengers who are stuck on a train. That's why it's called Train to Busan. And more people on the train become infected with a zombie virus. It is like a rage virus. And because they're on a train, we have this microcosmic society. And what does the godmother love? Say it with me, say it with me. Ordinary people thrust in extraordinary circumstances, and we see how it all shakes out. We have the cynical businessman, we have the high school athletes, we have a couple expecting their first child, and we have one of our main characters is a child. So the stakes are high, people. The stakes are really high for this. This movie's intense. The action's ramped up. I could not believe how just intense it was. I can remember watching it, and I was under a blanket. I had the blanket pulled up. And you really, really care about these characters and what's going to happen. And that ending just tugs at the heart. So that leaves us with number 1, which is The Wailing from 2016. This film was so beautiful, so exquisitely filmed that I forgave its long runtime. It is long. The Wailing was directed by Na Hong Jin, and it stars Kwak Do-won and Hwang Jun-min. This film won a ton of awards and earned each and every one of them. our main character is a police officer who has this adorable child. And the police officer is so real and so human that I really felt a lot of sympathy for him right from the get go. I was really on his side. I was just rooting for him. Basically, he's patrolling his village, but something demonic is going on. So he enlists the help of a deacon and a shaman and anyone. Like, he's like, anyone who will hear me, anyone who will listen, please, please, because he's so over his head, which really, again, makes it very relatable and sympathetic. I think with this film, some people were put off by the ambiguity of the ending, but I liked it. When I finished the film, I really had to sit in it and think about it. And I like that. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the challenge of it. I had to think about who in this film was truly housing the demon and who was just manipulating everyone. And I certainly have my thoughts about that. But I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't watched this film. Again, you might go into it thinking, oh, this is a long film, but it moves quickly and it's exquisite. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. And I'm so glad I don't have to get on my awards box and start pounding my chest about it deserving awards but not getting them, because it did get the awards that it deserved. So thank you all for joining me my trip to South Korea. I have been doing some deep dives and watching people grocery shop in South Korea's and 7-Eleven, so much so that I've had to go to Asian markets and buy my own Korean food. So I'm really worried about what my blood work's going to look like when I next have it done. But I love you all so much. Next month, and this might be a cheat, and you can fight me on it, but I'll admit I'm cheating. I'm cheating on this. This isn't a country. But what I'm doing is Spanish language films. So that will include films from Spain, films from Argentina. You horror fans are like, yeah, I know where you're going with this, right? So there are going to be some South American films and some Spanish films, and I am kind of pushing them together. I am fully aware, even though I am not a traveler, I am fully aware that Spain and the Spanish-speaking countries of South America are very, very different culturally. I get it, but I am going to mash them together for one top 10 list. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, whatever time zone you're in. Sweet dreams.